Welcome to the Her Vibe is Pretty podcast, where you'll be guided on how to step up into your evolved woman,
design your dream life, and start living it. Let's get vibey. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Her Vibe is Pretty. We have a very special episode for you guys today, something that you guys have requested us talk about. And it actually is very, very fitting because Sarah and I both have some interesting takes on the same topic, like coming from different perspectives. But before we get into this, we are going to talk about what we are feeling high vibe about this week. So Sarah, do you want to go first?
Sure. I feel like this is just a broken record from every single time the season shifts in Michigan, because I remember last fall, this being my vibey thing for like 2 months, but the colors are changing. And if you've never been to Michigan and you've never experienced a fall in Michigan, you need to look up photos like right now because it's freaking gorgeous. So that's what's making me feel vibey is the fall change. And I'm obsessed with the season and with the outfits. And I'm like wearing, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see I'm wearing like this cute little fall hat that I just got. And I'm like manifesting fall weather by wearing cardigans. I have no right to be wearing cardigans right now because it's still like 80 degrees, but I'm manifesting it. So I'm acting as if, y'all, like if you haven't heard the quantum episode, go listen to it. You got to act as if you want to manifest what you want. So yeah, fall, the season shift is making me feel super high vibe.
I love that. And your hat is super cute. I actually meant to tell you that when we hopped on this call. You inspired me to wear more hats because I'm typically not a hat wearer, but every time I see someone wearing one, I'm like, I need to start doing that.
Yeah. Well, hats are like such a good go-to to spice up your outfit and to make you look professional with an outfit that's not maybe not professional. I'm wearing just a simple basic tank top right now and leggings, but you put a hat on and I look like a professional.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
Fashion hack.
Yes. What are you feeling vibey about, Mary? Tell us.
Oh, I'm feeling vibey. I got the sweetest DM from someone, and Sarah, this actually has to do with you too. So I wanted to read it, and I know she's a listener, so I hope she's cool with me sharing this. But the message said, "Hey, Mary, I just wanted to share this with you and thank you directly. I've attached my average exercise minutes over the last year, including my slump starting in January. I've marked the time since I've resubscribed to your app in yellow. And my daily exercise minutes aren't just up, they are through the roof, thanks to you and your app. It keeps me motivated, it keeps me accountable, and I feel amazing. And it's affected me in more ways than one. I'm now more excited to move. I go for walks while listening to Her Vibe is Pretty. Yeah, girl. I'm trying to establish a regular meditation and breathwork practice. I even joined Sarah's Inward and Upward, which is her subscription for her meditation and breathwork. So if you guys haven't checked that out already, please go check it out. Okay, back to the message. And I'm so much happier and so much more productive. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Recommitting to yoga and your app was the best decision ever. And if you guys can see this chart, like, I guess block her name, but like her chart of her exercise is like incredible. She's so much more active and she's doing it in a way that works for her, that she's excited about. And I think that's what I wanted to share this. Like, obviously, this just speaks volumes to, practicing yoga with the app, listening to the podcast, subscribing to Sarah's Inward and Upward membership, but doing things in a way that you look forward to them, that makes them fun, makes it that much easier to stick with. It makes it part of your everyday life, part of your lifestyle. It doesn't become this like exercise program you have to do or this like diet you need to stick with. It becomes a way of living. And that's the secret, you guys. Like, that's the way to make it fun, is when it becomes so like ingrained in your being that that's just what you do. It's not that you're doing it for a period of time to like lose weight or to like build more muscles or whatever. Like, those are goals. And a lot of people have goals like that. But when you make it part of your everyday life in a way that you love, you're winning. Like, that's the goal. And it just like makes my heart so happy to see that, as well as the fact that like she's not just working on physical exercise and moving her body. Like, that's one pillar. She's also working on her mental health as well. And I think that's, again, what makes it so easy to stick with, because it's a mindset game too, not just like a discipline and like how hard can I be on myself and how far can I push myself physically. She's encompassing the whole picture. So
totally. That message, it just makes my body feel light. Like, how fucking vibey.
Exactly. Like, that is, to me, that is the definition of like, let's get vibey and like raise your vibes. Like, it's, yes, it's everything. So
just thinking about her, like using your yoga app daily to move her body in a way that feels nourishing, taking walks while listening to our episodes. And on top of that, using inward and upward for these breathwork and meditation practices. Like, I just have nothing else to say about how fucking vibey. Like, that's the way to evolve, truly. Like that, if any of you are new to the podcast, new to personal development in general, and you want to know, like, where do I start? I've been having this conversation with one of my loved ones. It's like, okay, it's just like a lot. I want to do this, but like, there's a lot. Like, where do I even begin? I just don't know where to begin. So if you're feeling that right now, take that listener's advice. That's where to begin. Subscribe to Mary's yoga app, join Inward and Upward, and start listening to our podcast on walks. And even if you've been here for a while, you can always re-listen to episodes. We have listeners do that all the time. They get so much out of it. And like, all of that is it's just a really wholesome way to get going on your journey and to maybe take it to the next level. If you've maybe like dabbled around in personal development a little bit, maybe you've listened to a podcast here and there, like committing to that right there, those 3 little things that are simple and quick, because Mary on her app and me and my membership, we have quick practices. Mm-hmm. Mary has yoga flows for like 5, 10, 15 minutes and up. I have all my practices are 15 minutes or less. And then a walk, like you can make that however long you need it to be. So quick little things that completely change your life.
It can make a huge difference. The one other thing I want to point out in her message is that she, and I've talked to her in the DMs for a while now. Her and I go way back. She was like one of the first users of my app, like when I very first launched it, but she had a slump that started for her in January. And I want to point that out because it's okay if you kind of fall out of it. You know, she was in it. She had one of the highest streaks on the app at one point, I remember. And guess what? Life happened. Like, she fell out of the routine, but she got back to it. And so I just want to point that out, that like, that is a very normal and common thing. Sarah and I, before recording this, I was sharing some things that I fell out of practice with too. And you can't let that stop you from getting back into it. Just be like, well, I haven't done it in so long, so why even bother? You bother because there is benefits and there are reasons for coming back. Like, it's only going to do you good.
And let me add to that and say that when you do fall out of it and pull yourself back onto the path, something shifts really, really deep inside of your system. I tell my clients this all the time. Every time you pull yourself back on, you evolve more and more and more. Like, coming from me, looking at my history. So I was actually trying to figure out the actual years I've been on this journey, and it's been about 3.5, 4 years. And looking back at those 3.5, 4 years, I can't even count the amount of times that I quote unquote fell off. And every time I pulled myself back on, the next fall off got shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And now it's rare that I fall off. And when I do, it doesn't feel super heavy to pull myself back on, which I'm actually going to talk about something that I recently went through in the summer when we get into our episode today and our topic, because we're talking about routines. I'm just going to throw it out there right now.
I was going to say, I kind of feel like this is a perfect segue.
Yeah, good segue. It really is. So there was a point in my summer where I did fall off, which you guys will hear more about. But coming back onto the path, like, I fell off maybe for a couple of weeks, and picking it back up again, not only did it not feel heavy and hard and challenging to pick it back up again like it used to, but I was like really excited to get back into it. And it felt like my new normal. So every time you fall off and pull yourself back on, like, something really, really shifts. But if you fall off and just stay off and don't bother getting back on, like, that's when your life stays stagnant or goes downhill. But every time you pull yourself back on, you have something to celebrate, and something deeper inside of your system truly shifts.
That's so true.
So, yeah.
Which takes us into our topic today.
It takes us right in. So I was reviewing. So when you guys join our Facebook group, which if you haven't, make sure you do, because we've been having a lot of good stuff happening in there lately. But so when you join our Facebook group, you have to share like what you're struggling with or what you would like advice on. And we've had multiple people, and one recently share that they struggle with like sticking to a routine. And the question is like, how do I stick to a routine? How do I stay on a routine? So we're going to have a quick little convo about routines today and our perspective on them in general, and then on how to stick with them. So Mary, share with our listeners what you briefly shared with me prior to recording this episode.
Yeah. So when Sarah shared that one, I was like, ooh, this one hits home for me. Obviously, a lot of my world these days is in mom mode and spending time with the baby. And if you are either a parent yourself or you've read about anything with parenting, or if you're not, this is all new to you. A lot of talk when you have a baby is about baby routines and like schedules. And I kind of come from this perspective of when you try to be so strict with yourself and setting a routine of things that you have to do every day in this way that you do them, you're setting yourself up for failure, because our lives, they ebb and flow. Not every single day is the same. And when we have this idea or put this pressure on ourselves to stick to this perfect routine, you're ultimately setting yourself up for like a letdown. Like it's okay for our routines to fluctuate. And one of my favorite like mommy blogger people on Instagram, her name's Carrie Locker. One way that she kind of phrases this, and again, it's for babies, but it also I think applies to any human trying to stick with the routine, is like, having routines are not bad. And we'll go into that because again, there are ways to stick to a routine and we'll share tips on that. I'm not saying like, don't ever have a routine, but there's a difference between having a routine and having like a schedule, where to me, like a routine can have some of that ebb and flow, where if you're trying to be very strict and like on this schedule, you can sometimes be setting yourself up again for that letdown, or like not doing it. So then, oh, well, I didn't get my workout in, or I didn't do my meditation in the morning. So like, I'm just going to stop doing it. And that's not the goal we want here. Like, to me, there can be intentions and things that you want to include into your everyday life, whether that's like meditation, yoga, like we were talking about with Getting VIBEY, like eating healthy, nourishing foods, moving our body, like all of those things are amazing. But when you get so rigid and strict with it, you're putting all this extra pressure on there that kind of sucks the fun out of it and makes it something that's more of a chore instead of this lifestyle that flows.
Yeah. And to add to that, it creates a lot of anxiety in people's systems, because I used to be like that. And that's what was one of the main causes of the anxiety that I experienced, is trying so hard to stick to the things that I planned out for that day, to stick to the times, to stick to the things. And like you said, it's setting yourself up for failure. So when I didn't do it, not only did I feel like I failed, but my body was built up with contraction and sensations of anxiety, which was not fun. And when you're so scheduled, so this kind of goes into the topic that we talk about kind of often, which is like the minds love certainty. They love to be certain about what's coming next. And I think that's where like scheduling and routines kind of originated from. It's like, oh, well, if we just know what's going to happen, then we'll be safe.
Or I like it's routine to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but like when you do that, when you're so freaking scheduled, you don't leave room for growth, change, evolution. Like you don't leave room for miracles and magic to enter into your life, because you're so scheduled and trying to stick to the schedule, which is like so closed off from opportunity and your higher potential. Once again, not saying routines are bad. We're going to go there too, because that's like kind of what I've experienced lately, and routines are beautiful. But what did you say? Like the schedule is like what seems and feels more strict. The routine is more so like the intentions, and it has like that flexibility.
Exactly. I think a good way to think about this too, you guys, is thinking about being really like rigid with your schedule, your routine, or allowing that flow.
Yes.
Allowing, some days are going to be different than others, and that is okay. Because to touch on the anxiety that you were saying that you felt, I used to have that too when I was trying to do yoga every single day. And I don't want to say that it ruined it for me, because it absolutely didn't. Practicing yoga every day felt bad when I had this idea in my head, like it needs to look like this, it needs to happen like this, adding that rigid structure around it. But when I allowed myself to say, like, maybe my yoga practice today looks like a child's pose or a reclined cobbler's pose in bed, like maybe it looks different that day because I had a very hard day. I had a very like rough day and I need to relax. And then on other days, it was like, I need some power yoga. Like I want to kick my own ass in my practice. So letting there be that flow made it feel so much better. And it was so much easier to stick with because there was that room for like, let's see how today goes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so beautiful. So I think our first point is like, try not to be super, like, we just don't really recommend being super strict with the scheduling because it can create a lot of chaos, anxiety, overwhelm, tension, and stress in the body, which hinders your life and it hinders you from stepping up into your fullest potential. Now, on the flip side, like we've been saying, routines, having some sort of routine is also very valuable. So what I have experienced in my life and in my career is not having any sort of routine at all also kind of sets you up for failure.
I agree with that.
There's once upon a time where I literally had zero structure, and structure is still something that I'm inviting in. This goes into kind of masculine and feminine energies. So I'm more so one who leans toward like super heavy feminine in some aspects and in some areas. And so when I'm by myself and in my own business, I lean toward the feminine, which I honor and value, but the masculine is where that routine and that like structure comes in. So once upon a time when I was fully in my feminine, I was not moving the needle forward in my life, like at all, because when I was fully in my feminine, I was like, okay, well, I can sleep in until whenever I want, and I can wake up whenever I want and do whatever I want. And when it feels good, I'll do it. And then like nothing was happening in my life. And I didn't really feel fulfilled. So I'm like, okay, there's such value in having a balance and like having the fluidity of the feminine in your everyday life and having the structure of the masculine, which you guys, I use these terms feminine and masculine, know that feminine and masculine energies are just energy. It has nothing to do with gender.
Right. Every one of us has both
them.
energies at different levels.
Right. Exactly. We all have both feminine and masculine, and it's all about finding your perfect balance. So like with the routines, I think that my obviously you guys all know I'm an avid morning routiner, and this kind of goes into my biggest tip for sticking with routines is you have to come back to your why over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like maybe even daily, you have to come back to your why. So like, think about the routine that so if you ask this question to us, or if you've been curious about it yourself, think about the routine that you desire to stick to. Maybe it's a morning routine. Maybe it's an evening routine. Maybe it's a routine of going to the coffee shop for 1 hour a day to work on your business or your side business. Maybe it's a routine of moving your body every day. Think of the routine you desire to have. What are some routines that your highest, best self lives up to and embodies? And then go deeper and ask, why do I even desire to have that routine? That's what's going to keep you showing up for that thing, which is going to make it a routine, a habit. So this goes along with my morning one. So like, obviously you guys know I'm really big into my morning routine. And I think it's really important to, when you wake up, get yourself in the vibration that you want to live your life in, because momentum builds based off of the energy that you start your day with. And so I do it every day for the most part. I would say like 95% of the time I do it. Well, then in the summer, this is what I was referring to earlier. You guys know that my grandma got sick and I dropped everything in my life to go to the other side of the state to take care of her for 2 weeks. And then she ended up transitioning and going back to the soul world, to heaven. And that added like another couple of weeks onto like the craziness in my life. And during that time, the routine that I have had on my morning routine faded. I won't say that I never did it, but I definitely was not as consistent with it and it wasn't as wholesome. And that's okay. But that really invited me to come back to my why, which you don't have to fall off like that in order to come back to your why. But like when I was off of it, I felt like shit. I really did. Like during that time, I felt lower vibrating than I usually do. I was triggered more easily. I was confused in my life about literally everything. I was confused about every single aspect of my life when I didn't need to be, but I was because I wasn't doing that routine. So like that was a perfect example of why I do that kind of a routine in the first place, and which made it easier to get back on it and stick to it. So that's like my biggest advice for sticking to routines is always come back to your why. So another routine that I just started implementing is a nightly routine. And it's not super structured. It's more so like, okay, the last couple hours of my night is going to be intentional time for me that I put into myself and my self-care practices and all the things. And when I don't do it, I'm like, okay, wait, why do I want to do this? Why am I here in the first place? Why am I intending to do this? And that has really, really helped me make this thing solid.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Having a solid why makes it so easy to come back and to flow back into whatever routine it is you're trying to stick with. Mm-hmm. The only thing I would add, so my biggest advice on this topic is maybe remove the word routine out of it and switch it with intention. What intentions do you want to be living with? Yeah. You know, and it's kind of similar to the why. It's like another way of thinking, like, what's your why? Like, what is the intention of doing these things? And when you kind of have these overarching like intentions. So for example, your intention could be to move your body every day. Well, some days that might look like an hour yoga practice. Other days it might look like a 10-minute walk around the block. Mm-hmm. That's okay. You're living now. You're sticking to your routine by living in your intention for the way that you live your life. And so again, maybe that you have one for, nutrition, maybe you have one for movement, maybe you have one for mindset. There can be, several intentions that you live by. And then maybe the way that they show up can kind of, again, ebb and flow, can fluctuate. Like Sarah said, she started when all that stuff was happening with her grandma, like some of her things started to subside and go to the side. And she realized like, okay, I'm living with this intention that I want to have my morning routine. I want to start my day with a high vibe. So I need to find those ways to bring that practice back.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing that I want to add, and I actually got this advice from somebody else, but I've tried it and it worked. It definitely worked for a while, but then I stopped doing it. So this is just something that you could play around with because Mary and I have our ways of going about things. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. So I'm just going to share this with you guys because I think it's really intriguing, but it's to cue yourself to do the routine. So for a while, after everything had happened with my grandma, when I was getting back into it, I started cueing myself to do actually, I still do this. I definitely still do this. If you guys didn't see, I have a reel on my Instagram page that talks about like the one hack that makes a consistent morning routine super easy. And it's setting up a space for your morning routine.
I saw that and I loved it.
Yeah. It's something I've wanted to do forever, but I finally did it. And if you guys go watch the reel, I give you guys advice on what to maybe put in your space, but you can put whatever you want. And you guys, even if you don't have the things, you literally could grab a blanket that you don't use at night and bring it somewhere. I would say my recommendation is out of your bedroom. Bedroom usually leads to going back to sleep. Bring it out of your bedroom, living room, kitchen, deck, if it's nice outside where you're at in the morning, office, somewhere else besides the bedroom, set out the blanket. That's your cue to do your morning routine. So I set up that space. That's my cue. And every morning I just get up, I roll out of bed, even if I'm exhausted, and I just walk all the way back to my office and I sit down. And then boom, so for me, I put all of my vibey things in my space, my tarot cards, my crystals, Palo Santo and sage, which cleanse my energy, a journal. I keep a journal and a pen there. My vision board's there. So that's just like a cue that helps me stick with that routine. But another one that I was going to say that I started doing after everything with my grandma was I wanted to get back in the habit of working out in the mornings. So I would set my workout clothes out and put them like right in the middle of my hallway, like in the worst spot. Like somebody would trip over them, you know, or kick them if they walked through my hallway. But it's like, that's my cue. So like I'd roll out of bed and I would see my clothes in the hallway. I'd throw them on and boom, that would put me right into my routine. So you can do those cues for literally anything.
And that kind of reminds me of my last tip is making it fun and easy. And I think the cueing goes along with making it easy. If like, I don't know, when resistance happens, it's easy to like allow yourself to be slowed down by that. So when you kind of find those ways, like setting your workout clothes or creating a vibey space, or like, you know, for me, it reminds me back to what we were saying in that message earlier, where in your membership on my app, there are lots of short, quick, easy ways for you to practice these things so that it doesn't need to be this elaborate production necessarily.
Totally.
And when it's easy, when it's fun and easy to fit into your life, you're so much more likely to stick with it and want to keep going because you build that momentum. And then before you know it, like this for me was with my breath work, was like I started off with these short breath work sessions. Before I knew it, in my morning routine, I was doing like 30 to 60 minutes of breath work meditation every single day. And that has definitely shifted now after having a baby. And we'll talk way more about that in a separate episode because I have a lot to say about routines and having a baby and balancing life, but save that combo for another day. But exactly, when you are able to you're setting yourself up there for success. You're making it fun, you're making it easy, and you're going to be so much more likely to stick with it.
Yeah. Start small, you guys. That was going to be my last thing to like sum this all up, is start small. So whoever asked us this question, or like if you're listening and you're resonating, what is a routine that you would like to have? Is it a morning routine? Is it a routine in your work life, in your side business? Is it a nightly routine? Is it a routine that you would like and you desire with your partner, with your kids? Figure out what it is and then start small, even if it's just 5 minutes, because during that 5 minutes, you'll feel the difference and you'll feel how much you love it. And then it'll build from there. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. This like motivates me and inspires me. I'm like thinking over here, what other routine can I add into my life?
Oh, I am totally, I needed this episode and I'm really glad we had this conversation because I'm right there with you. And like I said, deeper conversation for another day, but I've lost a lot of my routines after having a baby. And so I'm in this with you guys. Like I'm trying to figure out what are those ways, like what intentions do I want to have? What cues can I set up for myself? How can I make it fun and easy and not feel like a chore? And, you know, I used to have a couple hours long, you know, morning routine, and realistically, that's not what's going to work in my life right now. And that is okay. Like that's the season that I'm in. So I'm going to get creative and find other ways to do the same things to get the same effect. Yeah. That maybe doesn't look like the couple hour routine that I used to have. And that's okay.
Okay. Let's turn this into a case study. Want to?
Yes.
So it already came to me what routine I want to bring in. So I have a habit of working in my business and not on my business. So I'm always working in it. So like creating content, going live, creating new practices for my membership, which is amazing. However, I really want to get in the habit and start a routine of working on the business as well. So let's both commit. So yours is going to be around like what, like your morning routines, morning practice. Okay. So that'll be yours. Mine will be creating a routine of working on my business. Let's commit to that now. And then in 1 month, let's do another episode and update our listeners.
I love that. I'm making a note right now because that is such a good idea so that you guys can see how we go on this journey too. Right. Because like I said, I am, we're right there with you. Like and this is something that's always growing and evolving. So it's not like you just set one routine and that's what it is forever and ever and ever. Yeah. It's okay for these things to shift and change and add some new ones and remove some other ones. And so if there is a routine too that you want to start, remember this and let's follow up in a month from now. Yeah. DM us, let us know whether you share it to us on Instagram, send us an email or in the Facebook group. We're in this together and let's support one another and share ideas. And if you're feeling stuck, again, we're here to support you in any way that we can.
Totally. So let's commit to this. I'm going to commit to working on my business I'm going to start with 15 minutes a day, even on weekends. That's going to be my commitment. That's how I'm going to start my routine. So that's going to be my goal. We can just let's update them weekly, but let's like give ourselves a month to like create these routines.
I think that sounds so good. Okay. I'm marking it as November 1st, 2021 is when Perfect. We'll do like our month roundup follow-up.
Love it. So good.
Yay.
Okay. This is awesome, you guys. I'm so glad we did this episode. To those listeners who requested that we talk about routines, thank you. You guys, we value your episode requests so much. So if you have any more, please keep them coming. Pop them in the Facebook group, DM them to us. Either one works. Comment them on one of our Instagram posts. But we love you guys so much. If you haven't already, it would mean the world if you would rate and review us, especially if you are a new listener and have never done that for us before. That helps our show grow, which helps the world heal. We are all into this together. So thank you guys for being a part of the Pretty Vibe Tribe, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye. Love you.
Love you. Bye.